stand by for a message from Dianthus, President of Earth and rotating Premier of the Sun System.
Barbarella?
Mr. President. Love. Just a minute, I'll slip something on.
Don't trouble yourself. This is an affair of state. What I must tell you not only is grave, it's a secret.
A secret?
Have you ever heard of a young scientist named Durand?
Yes.
Recently, while on a trip to the North Star, he vanished into the uncharted regions of Tau Ceti.
But why is that a secret?
Because Durand is the inventor of the positronic ray. It's a weapon.
Weapon? Why would anybody want to invent a weapon?
How should I know?
I mean, the universe has been pacified for centuries, sir.
What we know of it. The trouble is we don't know anything about Tau Ceti or its inhabitants.
You mean they could still be living in a primitive state of neurotic irresponsibility?
Precisely. And if they are, and if they have learned from this young scientist the unspeakable secret of the positronic ray, well, it may give them the power to shatter the loving union of the universe.
But that could lead to archaic insecurity
and war.
Hello and welcome to Still Watching the Skies for October 2016. I'm Robert Reinecke.
I'm Nat Elmorel.
I'm Cody Lang.
I know all of us are busy. I know this is a busy time of year for everybody that loves film, with film festivals going on and lots of other activities with the Oscar race starting up. So we're going to jump right into our movies of this month. We have two, courtesy of Nat. First up is Barbarella by Roger Vadim and starring Jane Fonda, and then we'll be following it up with John Carpenter's Dark Star. Nat, why don't you tell us about these films?
I'd be happy to. I'll start with Barbarella, if we're going in chronological order. So, this is the film that may not need that much introduction. I think for a lot of people it kind of awakened something in them around this time, but 1968 sci-fi erotic spectacular starring, as you said, Jane Fonda, directed by Roger Vadim, who was Fonda's husband at the time, produced by Dino De Laurentiis, which is probably not surprising, and screenplay by Terry Southern, fresh off Dr. Strangelove, oddly enough. But Barbarella is also based on the French comic strip by Jean-Claude Foyest, aptly titled Barbarella, and pretty much similar to, I guess, some of the fixes, I guess, Barbarella gets into in this film. And generally she is, I'm not entirely sure what her job description is, but she is contacted by some Earth government to hunt down the Dr. Duran, from which the 80s band gets its name. En route, she encounters some strange children and even creepier dolls, fornicates with quite a few spacemen.
But no space women.
Yeah. On the planet in which she tries to locate Duran, she encounters a revolution which is intended to overthrow the evil dictator of that planet, aptly played by Anita Pallenberg, who herself is known for her relationships with two of the Rolling Stones. And she encounters on the way a blind angel named Pygar, played by John Philip Law, and the leader of the resistance, Dill Dano, unfortunately named, played by the great David Hemmings. And Duran himself is played by Milo Oshia. I'm not sure how many other people would know him from this, but he was also Leo Bloom in the, I think, first attempt at adapting James Joyce's Ulysses, which is an interesting film in itself. But it's a strange, culty, campy film, and I'll toss it over to Robert.
Yeah, it is campy. I don't know if it's good campy, though. Because usually I like camp when at least I mean, I don't think camp is an excuse for it can't make any sense, or it doesn't make any sense because it's campy. You at least have to have some structure to it, and I think that's what I would struggle with the most. I mean, I think Jane Fonda herself is actually fun and very sexy in this. I mean, it's certainly at her peak sex kitten period here, and I think she's gorgeous. I think she's at least trying real hard, and things like the opening zero gravity striptease I think works really well. Then the plot kicks in, and I struggle with the film. I like the production design for the most part. It's very 60s, but I think it's a fun production design. I could tell it was a Dino De Laurentiis film, and it's like just waiting for Queen to start blaring on in the background, and it'd be right in line with Flash Gordon. But the plot seemed just to be a series of vignettes that happen one after each other with not much tying them together. They didn't seem to say, okay, this happens, so this must happen. It was just like this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and I kind of was waiting for some reason to justify this thing as a story as a whole. Barbarella herself doesn't seem to have anything special skills, except for maybe an infinite capacity for pleasure. But with that, I kind of struggled with it. It kind of wore out its welcome for me, probably about the halfway point while I was waiting for it to have a point other than just kind of sexy production design, and let's see how many outfits we can put Jane Fonda into and then tear those outfits so we can show more of her skin. So, I mean, I didn't hate it, but I really ran out of patience with it.
Cody?
I guess it's my turn. Yeah, I had actually seen this before. Have you guys seen this before?
I've seen parts of it before.
Okay, I think I saw this a few times when I was a kid on TV, censored obviously, but yeah, I thought it was okay when I was a kid. I don't like the movie or think it's good, but I guess it was kind of fun to watch. But then again, it seems to be like it would be more interesting if it was like a half an hour long, not like 90 minutes. And the one thing I will say that I did like was the sort of idea of the city being on this like big liquid pool or lake of whatever, like sort of like evil lava or something, and it can only thrive if it's getting more evil from its citizens.
It's like the River of Slime in Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Which is a cool idea, I guess. I don't know. I don't have much to say. I do like campy movies, but for some reason, I don't like them when they're big budget, I guess. I'm trying to think of other ones that would be like a big budget camp movie. Like maybe like Attack of the Clones or something, or the Phantom Menace, but those are unintentional camp.
Flash Gordon.
But yeah, I haven't seen Flash Gordon. I was actually going to suggest it as my pick, but I decided not to. I'll save it for another time. I've seen Flesh Gordon, which I saw that when I was a kid too, when I was like 13, because my friends rented it lots from Blockbuster on VHS, and that one's lots of fun. Yeah, but for some reason, I just don't find the character that interesting for a full feature film. I think it would work as a comic book or as like a cartoon series. And I think Jane Fonda is probably the best thing in it besides Pygor. I think Pygor was probably my favorite character. And I don't think this director is a very good director. He's, he seems to have no sort of skill with set pieces or special effects or set design. Like the sounds, and maybe that was intentional, the sounds don't make any sense with what you're seeing on screen. And I just I don't know, it's very hard for me to criticize it because I know it's supposed to be bad. I guess that's the point of it, but it's just not that entertaining, compared to other campy films that are intentionally bad or poorly made, like some old John Waters movies or something like that. And those films are largely plotless as well too. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to maybe kind of bounce off some further things you guys say to really say anything interesting about this. I don't really have much. Just in general, I just don't really like it and don't really appreciate it. And I've seen a few of his other films, and I don't think they're very good either. So it just could be because he's just not a great director. But I don't know. I would think the source material had some other ideas in there. I've never read it, but I would think that they had some other ideas that they could have drawn from. But it seemed to be they were really interested in the set design and the production design and
sex.
And sex, which is fine. Like if a film is driven by sex, it's okay, but it doesn't really seem to make sense, especially the ending where she becomes completely surrounded by this bubble because of her innocence, when the whole movie's is portraying her as a very sexual being, unless the film is trying to say, to be sexual is to be innocent, or to not have any shame is to be innocent, which I guess makes sense. Although I don't think that film is making the connection. I'm just trying to find a way to make sense of it. But I'll hand it back to Nat. I think Nat probably has some more positive things to say.
I do, and I can't argue too much with the oddities of the plot, but I do think it's interesting. I treat it kind of like a James Bond film of this time, and I don't think I'm the only one to make that comparison. But you do get to those points in the Connery James Bonds where it is just going from place to place, finding something so that he can get something else, so that he can go somewhere else, so that he can eventually meet up with the bad guy and attack him. And I do think it's interesting in this regard that it's sort of playing in that same vein that Barbarella's like this intergalactic, even one step up from international. Not really, well, she does do some spy work in the film, and yet she's not really a violent person or doesn't use violence nearly as much as sex or at all, even to acquire or achieve whatever she needs to achieve. And that may be sort of where the innocence comes from, that it's more like, a love fest rather than anything that advocates or outright is a champion of violence. So at least in that regard, I think it's kind of an interesting counterpoint to a lot of the action films of that time.
Yeah, well, it was really a make love, not war statement.
Yeah. Which and it's interesting too that I get a sense that there's kind of like a meeting or a mesh of like the 60s in America and the 60s in Europe in this film, where you have kind of like those peaceful elements or those like swinging elements of both of those coming together in this. I don't really know how much overlap there is. I haven't done too much research or study on those movements or the differences between them across the pond, but I think it is neat that you have somebody like David Hemmings or Marcel Marceau or Milo Ishii, like or again Anita Pallenberg, that you have like kind of again an international coalition of actors coming together to make this film. And I think it's produced by an Italian guy. It's written by a French author. It's an American lead. It seems weird to be like that much of a collaborative effort. And the one thing everyone can agree on is sex. And I do like the set designs in this, but I will agree that the direction leaves something to be desired. Vadim is very reluctant to do anything with the camera other than just shoot straight on. But I do give props for that opening credit sequence, which may be one of the best opening credit sequences in the history of cinema, not simply for the striptease, but also for how the credits appear. And Dino De Laurentiis's credit appears to be trying to bang Barbarella during the process of it, which is odd. But I like some of the ideas in it too, and I think it's innovative, even if it doesn't totally take advantage or capitalize or explore to the full extent those ideas. Like, I think it's interesting that they have the excessive machine, or that they have the weird dolls, or that she has to get this invisible key, or that they have just this blind angel flying around, or just the idea that she's contacted by the president of Earth, and like where does, like, what is her job title? But I don't know, there is a certain spirit, and I guess a certain degree of patience and tolerance that you have to apply coming to this movie. And I think I would agree that it's more of an artifact now, rather than like some deep film in looking into the human condition. But I kind of like it for that.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I think even for what it is, it could be better at what it tries to do, though. Because, I mean, Barbarella, I find kind of a cipher here. I don't know, even after watching it, what her skill set is supposed to be, what she brings to the table. She just kind of wanders through the film. Things happen to her. Then more things happen to her, and people bail her out. And I don't know that she does a whole lot, except for short out the pleasure machine at the end, and be an innocent throughout it. So I was hoping that she'd be more proactive, be more of a maybe not a feminist icon, but just a character that did something, a female character of the period that was actual protagonist. And I don't want to say this is sexist, but it certainly they can't really prop her up as much more than a sex symbol.
Mm-hmm. The one thing I was kind of hoping I would, I was not like really anticipating like a heady science fiction film, even though I was reading a Jane Fonda interview made around this time where she said, why this film is different. And she said, I'm attracted to sci-fi because of the characters in the story, not because of the special effects. That's what we were trying to do in Barbarella. Yeah. And then so I was like, that's got to be a joke or something, or like some kind of, sarcastic comment. But the one thing I was hoping it would be would at least be funny, and I just didn't find it that funny. Like, I was kind of laughing, not really with the movie, but just at the movie, and in terms of like how much music they use throughout the film. It's an inordinate amount of music, and I don't know Roger Vadim well enough, but maybe he was uncomfortable directing English speakers. Maybe that was the case or something, and he felt that was making musical sequences where you just kind of follow the image and listen to the sound. So it works like a proto music video. Maybe that might work better, and I guess it did at some points, but I just didn't find it very funny. And I think if films are intentionally campy films, they're supposed to make you laugh, and this just didn't. And again, that's very subjective. Like, some people might find these situations funny. Like, I don't find sex jokes that funny in general, and I really don't like films from the 60s in general, especially films made from Hollywood, or even British films I don't really like too much from the 60s. Like, it's just not my favorite period for film. Even though it was an interesting time in the world, I just didn't find that a lot of great films were being made. The ones that are considered the classics or the most popular or successful are the ones I don't really respond to that well.
I think there's something to be said too for like going to the theater for an experience, and you're kind of at this time where like television is kind of now a little bit more established as a medium, and so you have like all those epics of the 60s coming out. Even just with Kubrick alone, there's like Spartacus in 63, and the same year you have 2001. There's like I think Spartacus is 63, but
it's in the 60s.
Yeah, and they have like Cleopatra and like all these really long, like kind of, I guess something similar to what you sort of would see in the early 2000s with like the Lord of the Rings movies, or even now where you have like 3-hour plus movies, which are like big commercial events. And the idea is like you have to capture a certain experience within the theater of seeing something on the big screen. And I feel this may be one of those movies too, where there's like a certain mood or demographic that that they're going for, or specifically targeting, and it is kind of like the counterculture or of the 1960s, who are perhaps indulging in some sort of recreational drugs and going to the theater to just watch this gal sex her way across the galaxy.
Yeah, and I will say I was amused to see that her spaceship has shag carpeting on the floor, the walls, and the ceiling.
Yeah, that's a classy spaceship.
I mean, I think that was amusing. I agree. It is definitely designed for the counterculture, the flower children in the audience, and it probably is something that probably is taken into the flip side of a James Bond film. So I kind of get that. I just think that even within what it does, it could have done it better. But I mean, there were things that amused me. I think I kind of enjoyed the sequence where Barbarella comes across the rebel leader. Who is it? Just me, or did he look like Paul Dano to anyone else?
Yes.
I don't remember. So maybe, but
I like that when she offers to have sex with him, she's disappointed when he wants to have sex the way Earthlings do, which seems like something out of Demolition Man. Mm-hmm. I think Demolition Man did the joke better, but I thought it was an amusing joke, and that kind of stuff amused me. I just wish that there was
or Sleeper.
Isn't that the guy from... Yeah, Sleeper does it, but isn't that the guy from Blow Up?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And who later...
So I guess he does look like Paul Dano.
and later his career was directing episodes of The A-Team.
Well,
I watched a lot of his career then.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I'm just trying. I mean, I think Jane Fonda is doing the best she can here, and I'm just trying to hold on to anything as being substantial, and I find most of it be very surface, and maybe that's what I'm struggling with Barbarella. It's just that it is supposed to be a surface spectacle, and I'm trying to dig deeper, and I'm not sure there's anything really there, and maybe I just need to sit back and enjoy it for what it's trying to do.
I get the sense too that it's kind of like Brian De Palma's most highly regarded films, where you have to suspend a lot of disbelief and just understand that it's not going to make sense, and that there's a certain aesthetic, there's a certain style of acting, there's a certain just attitude or tone about the film that you have to kind of like tune yourself to and accept it. And I don't know if this would be on the level of some of those films, but I think that is key to appreciating it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I agree. Yeah, I don't think it is on that level, but there's lots of films I like that don't make any sense at all.
Yes, we know.
But I don't think that's really a bad thing. That's not like a virtue in itself, in my opinion. So I don't really discount this movie for not doing that. It's just that not only does it not make sense, it's not very interesting, and it's not funny, like, at all. Like, and again, it just might be my sense of humor. I wouldn't call myself a prude or anything, but I just don't find sex jokes that funny, especially when it's just when the punchline of the joke is that she likes having sex or she has sex with everything. So I just
except the lesbian.
Yeah, and I guess, like for me, when something is going to go to a certain extent and forego like characterization or a dense plot or an interesting plot, for me, I would prefer that it just goes really extreme, and just goes all the way and just becomes completely ridiculous. That being said, that's kind of my criticism of the Neon Demon as well. And what's interesting is that Winding Refn is trying to make a remake of this movie.
Nice.
Which I think you would be a good person to do it, but
yeah,
I just for me, like, things not making sense, I don't really care as long as it's doing something interesting, and it's not even the lack of camera movement. Like I think a good director doesn't really need to move the camera. That's not good direction, but it's just like there's really no command of the medium here. It's just simply filming props and sets, and there's I just don't really see any energy to it, or it just seems like the film is just always rushing to get to the next sort of little scene where Barbarella has to have sex with something, or
be rescued and then have sex with somebody.
Yeah.
And I do kind of like how it is a sort of weird take on the James Bond movie, which are movies I do like from this period to a certain extent. But I would have rather it been maybe her done a bit more planet trotting, I guess, going to more places. And seeing, but then again, that would require more money, and it seemed like they had blown their wad on the stuff that they already did. So it's a fine line between stuff like that. But it's not one I would want to revisit again. Like I can see why it's maybe fun to revisit, but I don't think it holds up very well, especially compared to other camp films that I think make way less sense than this one. Like Pink Flamingos, for example, makes no sense, and that one I think is much better, although it's much more graphic and much more grotesque.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I wonder if it would be better as like an anthology film where it's just a handful of adventures that Barbarella goes on, something maybe kind of like Sin City is set up, or at least just multiple stories with the same character.
I think it would work well as a serial,
as
like a serialized, because I don't really hate the character and I don't hate the concept either. I'm just not crazy about how it's executed, but I think that it has lots of potential. And again, I haven't read the comics, but from the panels that I viewed, like they didn't seem like bad comics, like from this period. I don't know much about comics, but they were done well, and again, like the stuff I saw was basically everything that was used in the film. That's kind of what's on the internet is like whatever inspired the scenes in the film that was in the comics, and so it was pretty similar. But
yeah, I would say that the main difference between Brian De Palma and Nicholas Winding Refn and Roger Vadim is that the former have a lot more command over the filmmaking process, and when they go big, they go big. And I don't know if Roger Vadim is capable of much beyond. I mean, I think the opening credits work very well, and then it's all downhill from there, basically. And I don't mean that in the sense that it's just in the sense of story. I just mean in terms of filmmaking itself. There's nothing nearly as inventive after the opening credits, and I find that probably the biggest disappointment. It doesn't build; it just kind of starts out with a bang and just kind of coasts the rest of the way. And I don't know if it's the story or the direction or a combination of both, but it's just I just find it kind of lackluster.
Well, and to be fair, there are some cool characters that show up, or like Pygor is actually interesting, and I think his performance is really good too, or it fits.
Right.
And I like the design of those guards with like those whips on their like gloves or whatever, like those whipping gloves or whatever they're called. They were interesting, and then when the one guy shot them, like the whole thing blew up and there was no one inside. Those ideas I liked a bit.
Like you're going to like Flash Gordon when you get around to that, then.
Yeah, I'm sure I will.
Yeah, especially since it has a lot more energy than Barbarella has.
Well, if it's anything like Flesh Gordon, then I'm sure I'll like it.
Well, you also have Brian Blessed, which is...
and Max von Sydow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Timothy Dalton, so you have a Bond in there.
Timothy Dalton, yeah. It's funny.
And I guess I'm also interested in the idea, because it was mentioned, I think, last year when, whenever Daniel Craig talks about retiring as Bond, and the next Bond discussion comes up, and there's always like I think Idris Elba was a big one, but then Gillian Anderson kind of.
Oh, that would be so awesome.
Yeah, I don't know, like intentionally or unintentionally or tongue in cheek, tossed her hat into the ring. And I thought like that would be such an interesting idea, where you just have like an older woman kind of using her sexuality for like international intrigue, and that's such an interesting idea to me. And we've seen it with James Bond, and they've done a really, really good job with Bond. And again, that's that's kind of like the thing I latch onto here, or at least like about the Barbarella character, is somebody who uses sexuality to either solve problems or pay somebody for solving the problems for them.
She does too much of the latter for my taste, though, I think.
Yeah, but...
Well, I think the difference, though, is that it's never the only time where she solved a problem by having sex with someone was when it was with the excessive machine. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it was just to have sex, as much as I can gather. Like,
well, it does help. The boost of confidence she gives Pygar helps her out quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Yes, but it wasn't like she was aware that if I have sex with the angel, he'll get the will to fly again. She just wanted to go to his nest and have sex in it.
Well, and they also
which is fine, but.
Well, and they also like in her future they have different ways of having sex too, and that like kind of bringing things back to the roots, or like the
basics.
The basics is kind of like that running theme that you need to explore the traditional way of doing it, which is, I guess.
One thing I did think was funny was when he took off his furry costume, his chest was also really furry.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Again,
I don't know if that's his real hair or not, but if it is, then that's horrible for him. But
I do like the giant hookah with the.
Yeah, actually, I like that idea. That was interesting, and I like the dream machine. Is that what it's called? No, the dream chamber. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was interesting too.
Yeah, and that the scientist kind of turns out to be the bad guy.
Yeah, that was an okay twist. Mm-hmm. But again, I would have liked more sort of like more places to visit. But yeah, that was a good twist, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And inspired a seminal '80s band.
Yep, exactly.
Oh yeah,
and I like the design of the excessive sex machine as well, where it's kind of like an organ.
Yes.
Connotations there.
Yes.
What you will.
That's very much a pun.
Yeah, exactly.
Very much a sex organ.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. But, well, I guess that Oh yeah, I also mentioned that the city is called Sogo, and it's a portmanteau of Sodom and Gomorrah. So,
Oh, I didn't catch that.
I didn't catch it either.
And also odd biblical references, like the angel in here, or purity or innocence, and
well, and I think the angel was crucified, and then she said something like, "You have to de-crucify him," or whatever. that was so funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If they do remake Barbarella, who would you like to see play Barbarella?
Gillian Anderson, of course.
That's not a bad choice. Or Kristen Scott Thomas in the same look that she was in Only God Forgives.
Maggie Smith.
I don't know Maggie Smith. Let me just look her up on the internet.
Jessica Tandy.
Maggie Smith. Oh, I guess, yeah. She's quite old.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Scarlett Johansson might be an interesting choice.
Walter Matthau.
Except for he's dead.
Well, computer imagery. Scarlett Johansson, that's a little too
on the nose.
Yeah,
that's too obvious, Robert.
Like we have Under the Skin. Like that's her alien sex comedy.
I'm trying to think. Somebody can have fun with it though, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Lizzie Kaplan.
Oh, she would be good.
Yeah,
she's very pretty.
She is. She's got those kind of like worn, dusty eyes. Mm-hmm. I like my women tired and defenseless.
Jenna Malone, maybe.
Jenna Malone. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah,
I suppose if Refn gets it, he'll probably Elle Fanning has to be in the running.
Oh, I don't like her.
Yeah, I think also on the nose would be Zooey Deschanel, but like Zooey Deschanel from The Happening. So
don't like her either.
I mean, there's got to be somebody hasn't played a superhero to depth yet. That would be good, but be interesting if they ever get around to doing it, especially with the changing mores of the time. I would imagine that a modern Barbarella can be much more kick-ass and actually get things done by herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, I think we've tapped out Barbarella.
Yeah,
we've tapped her.
Yes. So now we can safely move on to, I guess, a future closer to our own, but still far out in space. To Dark Star, the spaced out Odyssey, as the poster would indicate.
Hello, Bob. Are you with me?
Of course.
Are you willing to entertain a few concepts?
I am always receptive to suggestions.
Fine. Think about this then. How do you know you exist?
What the hell is he doing? I think he's talking to it.
Well, of course I exist.
But how do you know you exist?
It is intuitively obvious.
Intuition is no proof. What concrete evidence do you have that you exist?
Well, I think, therefore I am.
That's good. That's very good. But how do you know that anything else exists?
My sensory apparatus reveals it to me.
Ah, right.
This is fun.
Now listen. Here's the big question. How do you know that the evidence your sensory apparatus reveals to you is correct? What I'm getting at is this. The only experience that is directly available to you is your sensory data. And this sensory data is merely a stream of electrical impulses that stimulates your computing center.
In other words, all that I really know about the outside world is relayed to me through my electrical connections.
Exactly.
Why, that would mean that I really don't know what the outside universe is like at all, for certain.
That's it.
Intriguing. I wish I had more time to discuss this matter.
Why don't you have more time?
Because I must detonate in 75 seconds.
Directed by John Carpenter, screenplay by John Carpenter and Dan O'Banion. Made in 1974. I don't think released until later, but released in 1974. But Dark Star follows the crew of the appropriately eponymously titled Dark Star vessel, whose mission is to go about the galaxy and blow up unstable planets. It's funny.
It sounds like a great job.
When I'm reading like the Wikipedia plot summary of this, after seeing the movie, this sounds like such an awesome movie, and like all the ideas in here just come off like, when you summarize them, seem hilarious. That they have trouble with the ship, they have a beach ball alien, the bombs are smart, and they teach it philosophy, and the computer is like the only woman with a sexy voice, but like her face is pixelated, and they don't get the proper food from the vending machines, and there's one guy who just stares off in space. There's another one who wants to go back to surfing, and it sounds awesome, but it's a little bit of a
It is.
Yeah. But it's basically just kind of looking at the last few days in the lives of these crews. Spoiler alert for this 42-year-old movie. But they come into contact with an electromagnetic energy storm, which kind of runs down their already run-down ship and causes a couple malfunctions. There's a large sequence involving some problems with the elevator and one of the smart bombs blowing up when it shouldn't, and trying to convince it not to do so. But I think the main idea here is to really capture the boredom and isolation and kind of madness-inducing vastness of space. And to that, Cody, how do you feel Dark Star does?
Oh, I think it's great. I loved it. I don't know. Yeah, I just, the one criticism I have is just the elevator scene is way too long. But I figured out, I sort of read about it and realized that that was created after the first cut of the film was shown at festivals, and the distributor wanted to make the film 90 minutes, or like close to 90 minutes, so they had to, make some scenes longer. That's probably the stupidest scene in the film, but I still thought it was kind of funny, although way too long. I guess my favorite part is the end, when the two space guys are just hanging out in space, and one guy's in the debris, and then one guy's a bit farther away, and there's like a collection of like what is it, like a meteor shower or something?
Yeah,
that's kind of like cruising towards him. Yeah, so it's like asteroids, and then he gets stuck in the asteroid field, and then he becomes part of it and says, like, I'm gonna travel around the universe. I'll come back here and see you again. Mm-hmm. And I love that part. Like, I like when movies that are stupid like this just go really stupid, like, and just go all the way. Not sure what to think about the beach ball alien thing. I liked it, but I didn't find it that funny. I guess it's it is amazing that was used as the final prop,
and like so obviously made up to look like a beach. Well, I mean, it is a beach ball, but like making no effort to really hide that fact.
Very little effort was made in that thing, and I guess that's the sort of joke. But I'm still amazed that happened. It's just really funny to me. But because a lot of the other scenes, they have some serviceable special effects with animation.
Yeah, I've seen a lot worse special effects from this period.
Yeah. And actually later periods, too. And earlier, obviously. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I found it really funny. I found everything I found the rapport of the characters really funny, how they always told the one guy to shut the hell up and, stop bothering them and stuff like that. And I like the design of the spaceship. It's so cramped, and you have them sitting kind of opposites, so that when you're shooting it, you have this interesting image, like you have, one guy in the background, one guy on the left, one guy in the foreground on the right. It just shows you that Carpenter knew what he was doing when he was making this really silly student film that was then made into a feature film at the behest of, and padded to be a 90-minute film at the behest of distributors.
Like the whole idea, or like the whole sense of isolation that you get from The Thing, you can totally trace from this movie too. I think, even just the very cramped quarters, like you were saying, and having them back to back with the respective panels, and just trying to move about, and then seeing their crew quarters, and each person has kind of their own way of passing the time. And even the facial hair, right down to the facial hair, I think is right up there. And even Alien too, which Dan O'Banion went on to write parts of. The whole scene with the alien, it's weird because it goes back and forth from being comedy to almost being not quite horror, but I'm never sure if the alien's actually trying to kill him or is in the process of killing him. And you have no idea what's going on because it's a beach ball with gloves on its feet. You don't know where's its mouth or what it has on its body. It's not clear at all, and they don't really care to make it clear. Well, and it attacks him, and then he doesn't say anything for a little bit, and then he'll say, "Oh, you son of a bitch," and he's okay. And the mouth is at the very bottom of it because he eats the toy, and you also don't have to show it eating anything by having the mouth on the bottom of it. But. It's obviously a very silly movie, and all of the intellectual stuff just make it even more silly, and I really like that about it. So I just. Yeah, it's just very funny. I don't know why I find it very funny, but that's just kind of my sense of humor. Is just really, really dumb humor like that. Well, I love dumb humor too. So,
yeah, I enjoyed the film. I kind of think it probably would have been more enjoyable as a student film because you can tell that it's been padded out.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, and the big joke of the film is they're all going loopy because of the tedium of space travel. It's not always excitement all the time, but sometimes I think trying to show the tedium actually makes the film itself tedious to watch at times. But which is part of the joke, but it's also not. It wears out its welcome too. But the general loopiness of the film, I enjoyed, and it does have ideas. I mean, you can kind of see this as being a forerunner of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with the talking bombs. You can see Alien in here, definitely. You can see some of John Carpenter's. I don't think John Carpenter shoots as nearly as well as he does his later films, but it's at least it's well conceived visually. I mean, there's interesting ideas. You can tell that O'Banion and Carpenter had read a lot of science fiction. They talked to the captain preserved in ice.
Oh, I love that part.
That seems right out of Ubik.
I love that.
That seems right out of Ubik. And did O'Banion write Total Recall at some point? Was he one of the many scriptwriters that took a pass at that? Either way, it would surprise me if he's a fan of Philip K. Dick.
Yeah,
I probably Carpenter too. I could see
co-writer on Total Recall.
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense to me, and I could see Carpenter being a fan of Dick too, because They Live strikes me as something that Philip K. Dick could have written at some point. So I mean, I think all of that was pretty good. My understanding is they kind of homaged or ripped off, however you want to say it, a Ray Bradbury story at the very end with the two astronauts floating off in opposite directions. One into the glowing asteroid fields, which is going to become part of, and the other basically grabs a piece of debris and kind of surfs to his death through the planets.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was
I love that. Yeah,
I thought that was very good. I think it ends very strong. I think it starts strong. It's just kind of in the middle. I think it gets a little tedious.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's so obvious that this was padded. You know, like the elevator scene alone.
Yeah,
was just so unnecessary.
Well, and it takes like 10, 15 minutes before like the actual opening credits show up as well.
I love that part. Yeah,
yeah.
Actually, that was interesting. I thought I was like, whoa, the credits are showing up now. That's weird.
Well, it's like they have the title, and then they have like this long sequence throughout the ship, and then it's like, oh, Dark Star.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. One thing I thought was really odd too is the music, which may have just given it away as a student film, but like they have, the original Benson, Arizona song performed by so and so, which I don't understand. It works, and it's an insanely catchy song for whatever reason. I have no idea, but it's like it's sort of like to this film as Black Leather was to The Damned, but it's just one of those songs that sticks in your head that the movie is really trying to show up or show off. And then at one point, the computer's like, for your listening pleasure, The Barber of Seville. And like, okay, so you're just going through like public domain stuff here. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like John Carpenter.
That's exactly what I thought too. I was like, what was free at the time?
Yeah. And John Carpenter's just like, shit. Music rights cost so damn much. I'm just going to write all my own stuff from now on.
I will say I did enjoy the obvious John Carpenter score to the film.
Me too.
Yeah, not as good as some of his later stuff, but I think still very promising.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like just think about this film. Like this could have been so bad. Yeah. Like only someone as good as him and O'Banion would make this, watchable.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it helps that they're trying to be entertaining throughout. They're not trying to make an artistic statement here. They're just trying to make a fun film.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that student films probably, a lot of them, just trying to make this some avant-garde statement, and rather than just tell a good, fun story with the budget you have. And
well, yeah, like they're trying to throw every idea they've ever had into one film because they think it's their one shot, and then it just becomes convoluted and shitty.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And this one, Carpenter obviously had more ideas available, right? Like,
yeah.
And I think that his humor chops are already there. Like even just the pacing and the direction of these what I'm assuming were non-actors or or not professional actors. It was still worked for me.
Yeah, and some of the gags are well conceived too. I really like the video diary of Dan O'Banion.
Those are good. Yeah.
I mean, either they managed to work several gags into that alone, so I thought that was very good, very inspired, and they weren't necessarily trying just for the one liner, just the whole humor on a conceptual level, and I appreciated that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do like trying to convince the bomb not to detonate.
Yeah, and then it goes back into the fuselage, and then it's like it like starts quoting the Bible, and it's like, and then there was light, and it blows up. I thought that was so funny. Oh my god.
Yeah, and the other two crew members are fighting over the gun that they're gonna try to save them. They're gonna shoot it out, and I thought that was funny too.
You almost killed me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, don't go out there. You're a horrible shot. It's like that's the reason why you shouldn't go out there.
Yeah, I would like to see just the original student film of this.
It's been restored.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's available. I think it would play much better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if it was a 45-minute film, it would be great from beginning to end. I mean, then there's stuff they probably added to it that's fun, but I mean, that stuff like that elevator scene goes on much too long, and there's other stuff that goes on much too long, and I think that's kind of the way I would call it a great one. Though I do know it was very successful as a midnight cult film, especially after
totally.
Star Wars hit.
That. Yeah.
No, I mean,
because I get the sense that like sometimes the special effects are trying to be intentionally bad. Like obviously with the alien, but whenever they have anything outside the ship, like when it activates its force field and just this weird like
animated line.
Yeah, like raspberry scrunchie appears from
Yeah, but other times I thought it was actually quite good. I mean, the spacewalk scene itself, I actually thought was fairly well done. They were obviously quoting Kubrick there for a bit, but I thought they did a very good Kubrick on a budget impersonation there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like the idea of like the observation dome too, of just like somebody sitting.
Actually, yeah, I could have used more of the observation dome conversations too.
Mm-hmm.
Like trade in some of that for the elevator screen time. That could have been good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it the action sequences or the padding sequences, I think it would have been better served just to have more of the crew talking instead of like we're going to give them some goofy mission or obstacle to overcome. Like just having them talking more, I think would have been better.
Yeah, so this was successful, and what's interesting too is that when Barbarella was released, it was not successful. It was then re-released in the late 70s, and it was more successful after this kind of midnight movie trend took off, which would have fit in very well with this one.
Yeah, I don't know if Dark Star was immediately successful though. I think I recall it being more successful as a midnight movie than it was on first release.
Oh, okay.
And I think Dan O'Banion basically wrote that when they went to see it in the theater when it was released, there was like nobody there, and the theater owner was complaining about it already. But I mean, it obviously cost next to nothing, so it didn't need to make much to be a success, and it ultimately was a success. Though I think Carpenter and O'Banion both had their biggest successes. I guess not too far in the future from that, but they certainly used it as a springboard, and I would look at this as a springboard if I'm a studio owner and go, yeah, you guys can actually make a movie. I wouldn't give you a big budget off the top of my head, but I would give you more and see what you can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because Carpenter's next film was Assault on Precinct 13, right?
Yep. And that's much better film than Dark Star.
Yeah.
In my, it's much more professional, and I think it has much more momentum, and it certainly is not padded. It's much more a John Carpenter film than Dark Star is. So you could see John Carpenter peeking out here and there. Assault on Precinct 13 is a full-on John Carpenter film, in all senses of the word. And I know Dark Star was actually didn't Dan O'Banion actually get hired to do the special effects for Dune by Joe Dorowski, I think, using this as a calling card, and that kind of led around to Alien. So I guess you can see it's a important picture for both O'Banion and Carpenter.
Mm-hmm. Well, like again, the captain in the ice is totally like the precursor of the people trapped in the alien slime, and
yeah, good point.
And just like there's some shots of him running down the beach ball or playing with the beach ball that that are very reminiscent of some similar shots in Alien as well. And I think too, just like the whole attitude of like people, I guess, kind of getting a little bit goofy when like their world or the world is ending. It is kind of like Return of the Living Dead, where you have the two mortuary workers who are like trying to deal with like this escalating problem, and like they get more and more desperate, but they become like a little bit goofier along that. But yeah. Agree, disagree, whatever. Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree that you can spot both Carpenter and O'Banion in this. It's not a film that's not at home in either of their filmographies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if I have a whole lot more to say on that other than, I mean, I mostly enjoyed it. I mean, there's some bits of it that's a tough slog, but overall I have a positive impression of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think I'm going to wrap that up. We got a couple of things of business. We're running a contest for the Milwaukee Film Festival, giving away tickets to a screening of Metropolis with a live accompaniment by Ally Orchestra. And so I put up a post on wherelongtailends.com with the contest details, basically asking people to enter with their top 5 list of science fiction films. Apparently I did not do a good job of advertising it, but I did get one response back from Bob Kolmetz, who has won those 2 tickets to do with them as he pleases. Basically, he had his top 5 list. His top 5 list off the top of his head of 5 favorite science fiction movies are, in no particular order, Star Wars, or Episode 4, A New Hope, if we want to be pedantic, Highlander,
of course we do,
The Terminator, Alien, and The Matrix. And he says if we don't think Highlander is sci enough to be sci-fi, then substitute with Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
I would probably say Highlander is more sci-fi than Star Wars.
It could be. So, and hey, it has a Queen soundtrack in it, so I mean that at least it's got to be a kick-ass experience to watch.
Ah.
There's nothing wrong with Highlander.
I didn't say there was anything wrong with Highlander.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with Highlander either. So, I mean, that's a pretty solid list here. I have put together my own list, since we can fill in a little time here. Hopefully we can pad it out a little better than Dan O'Banion and John Carpenter did.
That was a good segue.
Thank you, Nat.
Yeah. Or callback. Callback segue. Always.
It was a very good callback, yeah.
Okay. I have my list here. The first 2 were easy, then it got a little harder. Start with 2001, A Space Odyssey, which passes the test of I would drive 90 miles in the middle of winter just to see it in 70 millimeter, which I have successfully passed. 2 is Alien, which is on any given day maybe number 1. 3, I'm going to go with Frankenstein, James Whale's classic. 4, I'm just going to go with Empire Strikes Back.
Is that the only appearance of Frankenstein on this list?
That will be the only appearance of Frankenstein on this list.
Oh.
And 5, I really struggled with 5. I wanted to throw in something with 50 science fiction, but I also went with Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, just because I've seen Wrath of Khan a ton of times, and I generally love the story. Either one of you two want to throw something in for a list?
Let's go to Nat, and then I'll do mine.
5, Nat.
I can give you 5 science fiction movies I really like.
Just your favorite. Your favorite.
Actually, I think for Star Trek movies, man, I really like Wrath of Khan. I do really like, what is it, Undiscovered Country. Mm-hmm. And what is 4 again? Is that
Voyage Home.
Back to Earth? Voyage Home, okay.
That's where they're doing the whales, right?
Yeah.
That one's good.
Yeah. You know, gotta love 2001. I don't know, it's tough because I think, like, you know, they're so obvious, and like you kind of have to refine. And I think we already did we already talked about the movies that we enjoyed the most since doing this podcast, or that we've watched for this podcast, which may be a more interesting list.
Just go with your gut, man. What's your gut?
I don't know. You're, come back to me. I'll try to think of something.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to give you a chance. Okay, mine would be 2001, obviously. Tarkovsky's Solaris. Tarkovsky's Stalker. Fourth would be RoboCop, obviously.
Ooh.
And then, say what?
I approve of that choice.
Oh, good, yeah. And, fifth could be a toss-up, but one that really sticks with me is one called, I'll use the English title, it's called I Love You, by Elaine Renee. And it's a bit of a mind trip. But that one is really good, and I hope to suggest it on our podcast one day.
Well, you may.
Better than Alphaville, that's for sure.
Okay, Nat, we're going to put you on the spot here.
For fuck's sake. Well, just some other ones that I do like. Let's see, just looking up Wikipedia, list of science fiction movies. Actually, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I do like all three of those that we did.
Oh, I forgot about Body Snatchers by Ferrara. Damn it. Okay.
I would say John Carpenter's The Thing would be way up there as well. I do really like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the Richard Fleischer Disney movie. 2001, of course. Did see the Andromeda Strain for the first time this year, and I actually really, really like that. And
hey, me too.
Yeah. Westworld is another favorite, which we should do at some time.
I'll just watch that one too.
Nice. I do like Woody Allen's Sleeper, which is on here as well. You'll notice these are chronological. Back to the Future would be up there.
So you just get a list off every science fiction film you...
Yeah. Well, I said I was going to save my list for later, and then you're like, oh, we're going to do our list now.
Oh, I forgot some good ones.
Yeah.
Oh, well. I made my
actually,
list.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind would be at least, like, in the top three.
All right, okay, so we got a good sample there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So I will get in touch with Bob, and he will have his tickets before this episode airs. So we'll have to come up with a list again, and maybe I'll have to come up with something that'll get a little bit more feedback. Probably help if I don't limit the locale of it. So for prizes. Then again, what you gonna do? I am in the midst of the Milwaukee Film Festival as we speak. You're going to see a bunch of reviews up on the website. Several of them are going to be science fiction films. I really enjoyed Embers, which is kind of like what if humanity was struck with a disease which basically causes Alzheimer's in everybody. And how does humanity cope, and how does society fall apart, or how do people hold on? And I think it's a very good film. It's a very good-looking visual film made on a shoestring, but it looks like they could have spent a lot more. Very smart design of society falling apart from an art direction standpoint. I think they filmed in Gary, Indiana, so you got a lot of decayed industrial buildings, and they also did some filming in Poland, and I think upstate New York. So I think people will enjoy that. It's not really a midnight movie, even if it is part of the midnight program, or at least it's not what the midnight program has come to be known as, which is a bunch of over-the-top, exciting kills and gore and violence. This is a much more thoughtful film. I don't know if it comes together to make any grand statement. It's actually more kind of like a more thoughtful, kind of philosophical, kind of more like the Before films. There's actually kind of a pair of lovers in the story that reminded me of the Before trilogy quite a bit. So don't go in there, or don't seek it out seeking a big action adventure film. It's not a zombie apocalypse film. It's just something a lot more thoughtful and philosophical than that. I also saw, as part of the midnight film program at the Milwaukee Film Festival, the Italian superhero film They Call Me Jeeg, or They Call Me Jeeg Robot. Basically a low-level criminal. Gets powers, kind of Toxic Avenger style, via a toxic waste as he's fleeing and ends up in the river with the toxic waste barrels. They blow open. He gets super strength and I guess some advanced healing ability. And instead of immediately going out and fight crime or what that, he kind of like knocks over an ATM machine and then spends his days eating yogurt and watching porn. So it's kind of a realistic satire on the superhero genre. It starts out as satirical and it gets more conventional as it goes along, but I think it pulls it off pretty well because the villain is pretty decent. It's not a great superhero film, but it's better than some of the superhero films I've seen this year. So, and it certainly has a better villain than most of the superhero films I've seen this year. So I think it's be worth checking out. But it's not a great film by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it's an interesting one, and I kind of miss the satirical takes of superheroes they're kind of out of style now. So I mean, there's a little bit of Kick-Ass in there. There's a little bit of Unbreakable in there. There's more than a bit of RoboCop in there. So I mean, there's some nudity in there because it's certainly not a chase film because the so-called hero hooks up with kind of a mentally disturbed daughter of one of his friends, and she kind of hangs around the apartment too, and her breasts will flop out of her shirt for no real reason, but I'm not complaining.
Okay.
So I mean, those. I mean, it's kind of trying to be a superhero film, but actually kind of do its own piss take on it at the same time. It's certainly not a chaste American superhero film as they are right now. So I think that's pretty interesting. Again, it's not great, but I think it's a lot of fun. I think that's all I've seen for science fiction films. But I would also certainly highly recommend Under the Shadow, the Iranian set ghost story set during the Iran-Iraq War. A mother is and her daughter are terrorized by spirits while bombs fall outside their apartment complex, and they're kind of damned if they leave because of the bombs falling, and damned if they stay because of the ghosts in the building. So it's certainly about repression, both the fundamental Iranian or Muslim repression of females, and her own fears that maybe she's a bad mother, so she has to fight it out with the spirits. So I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it. It's a little bit on the high on the jump scare, and it's a little bit of a slow burn till it gets to those jump scares. But I think overall, I think it's a really good film. And I think that's all I have to date.
Can I redo my top 5 list?
Sure.
Okay. 2001, Solaris, RoboCop, Predator.
Oh.
And shit. Oh, AI. Yeah.
Okay.
AI.
Oh, we should do AI someday.
Uh-huh.
Well, we can.
How about the Blob remake?
That's up there. I liked it, especially the ending.
Okay. So I think that's about all I have for this episode. Cody, you have next month's pick. What's it going to be?
Oh, it's going to be Dead Man's Letters, directed by Valentin Lukashenski.
Sounds like a foreign film.
Sounds like a Russian film.
Ah, you're right. He's the protege of Andrei Tarkovsky.
Ah.
It's his first film. Never saw it before.
Great poster.
Yeah, the poster is what really drew me to the film. So I think it'll be interesting.
Is it 3 hours like a Tarkovsky film?
No, thankfully it's not. I was going to pick Stalker, and then I thought, let's just take a break from long viewing. So this one's under 90 minutes. So
you're a good man, Cody.
Yeah. Well, I just thought everyone's busy, and Stalker is a bit of a draining movie, and it's quite long.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Sounds interesting. I should mention that we're going to have a Halloween special at some point in October before we get to November's movie. So listeners should keep an eye out for that. So, and then we'll be back in November with Dead Man's Letters. So, any other final business we want to get around to? Nope. Well, then.
Oh, that's my dog. Sorry.
Apparently, your dog has some final business that she needs to take care of.
We'll take care of some of that business later. Isabel, come on.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Sorry, my girlfriend's coming home and she's probably drunk and like jingling her keys and stuff, so it's making it worse.
Okay.
Please keep that in the podcast.
I don't edit for content, only like for ums and oohs and that. And coughs.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Cocaine snorts.
Anyhow, thanks everybody for listening. If you have comments or feedback, you can send it to us at skies@wherethelongtailends.com, or you can just leave us a message at this post at wherethelongtailends.com. We'll be seeing you next month, so thanks for listening. And I'm going to end this episode with Duran Duran and Electric Barbarella. Enjoy!
Let's have some music in here, Boiler.
Sure thing.
Sunshine down, but I see only one. When I think I'm over you, I find I've just begun. The years move faster than the days. There's no warmth in the light. And how I miss those desert skies, your cool touch in the night. Kingston, Arizona, blue warm wind through your hair. My body flies the galaxies, my heart longs to be there. Kingston, Arizona, the same stars in the sky, but they seem so much kinder when we watch them, you and I.
Watch the skies everywhere. Keep looking. Keep watching the skies.